You mentioned primitive reflexes, and I want to go back to that because I don't think we all really know what primitive reflexes are. I think we think, oh, you hit your knee with something and your leg pops out. That's a reflex. But what are primitive reflexes?
Yeah, so like in a simple example of a primitive reflex would be when a child is born, if you swipe the bottom of their foot, you will see their toes splay and their toes should go up. And so that's called Babinski reflex, and that's just one. There are many. There's Moro, there's ATNR, there's a bunch of other ones. But primitive reflexes are cool because as the brain develops, what happens is as the frontal cortex gets stronger, it starts to turn those reflexes off. So we can use the primitive reflexes as a way to make sure that kiddos are in the right stage of neurological development. And so for us, they can direct exactly what we would do with someone if we're working with a child or sometimes an adult too. And so, say we have a 2-year-old who has a retained Babinski reflex where their toes still come up. That might indicate that one side of the brain or the other, specifically the cortex, is having trouble turning that off because it should turn off by the time the kiddo's walking because that allows their toes to grasp the ground. And so there's just these neurodevelopmental things that seemingly insignificant give us so much insight into the proper brain development. And if we let those go longer, they usually end up manifesting as things worse later. And so I always kind of put it on a spectrum of like, usually there's stress. There can be stress during the birthing process. There's a ton of research about that. There's some really cool research now about in mice, how they say by second trimester in utero, babe is already primed for a fight or flight or rest and digest response. But a lot of times we have, a kid's born and they might be fussy, difficulty nursing, and then they have digestive issues, and then they have colic, they have temper tantrums at 2 and 3. And then they get into the 5, 6, kindergarten, first grade, and now they're a behavioral issue and they're looking at diagnosing ADHD. But like I won't say no one, but most people aren't checking those reflexes to see if the brain is properly controlling itself the way that it should.